Welcome back, everybody, to the 423 Football Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Bouchard, joined here, as always, by Brett Hamilton.
Hello.
And today, as most of you know if you have been listening, we are continuing our Overvalued, Undervalued segment. This will be our last one of the off-season, so we're doing tight ends today.
Also the most exciting one.
Yes, of course. Tight ends are the most exciting. That's the most exciting position for fantasy football, especially. But, yeah, we already did QBs, we already did running backs and wide receivers, so if you haven't heard those already, go and check those out. You can check that out on Apple Podcast, YouTube, Google Play. So, yeah, today, all about tight ends. But first, before we get into that, got a little bit of news to discuss. Julian Edelman, we've been monitoring his suspension appeal the past couple weeks, and his 4-game suspension has been upheld, so he will serve those 4 games. Originally, it was believed that Edelman would have a vigorous appeal coming when I guess they thought he had a chance or something like that.
Yeah, I thought it. Reports say like this one might be actually the appeal that goes through, but it got quickly denied.
Yeah,
so.
denied very, very quickly.
I'm not even sure that an appeal has ever worked.
So yeah, 4 games for Julian Edelman. Obviously, we'll be talking tight ends today, but Rob Gronkowski, again, he's probably going to get a lot of work, as he always does.
Shocking.
Yeah, but look for other guys, maybe Jordan Matthews, maybe Chris Hogan, too.
Hogan.
Yeah.
I like Chris Hogan.
Chris Hogan to step up big time in fantasy over the first 4 weeks. Jameis Winston officially suspended 3 games. We've been talking about it here and there. We kind of expected this to happen. So 3 games for Jameis Winston. And then we got another suspension. Aaron Jones, Packers running back, has been suspended 2 games for substance abuse. So basically, I guess it's going to be Jamal Williams and Ty Montgomery. This isn't the best news for Aaron Jones. I still think Aaron Jones is the best of the 3 guys.
Yeah, actually, every week it's a different running back for me for the Packers. But whenever that news broke, Aaron Jones is the one at the top of my list. So
yeah.
But now I gotta go back and think about it some more.
Yeah. But Jamal Williams has a very, very good opportunity to solidify a starting role. I think Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones could be a very, very good 1-2 punch in this league. It's just we're going to have to wait a few weeks to really see that. And, again, we haven't really seen what they can fully do when Aaron Rodgers is on the field with them. Yeah. We had a little bit last year. Again, they were rookies last year, so this is the year I expect them to take a big leap. One of those guys is going to take a big leap.
Yep.
All right. Before we get into tight ends, I'll ask it at the end of the show. Never mind. We'll say
I like the suspense.
Yeah, suspense, guys, suspense. No, I was gonna ask a quick question, but again, yeah, we'll save it for the end.
We'll save it.
Yeah. So overvalued tight ends, undervalued tight ends. You want to kick it off with the first overvalued guy?
Well, sure, why not? And this one kind of hurts because it hits close to home, but I'm gonna go with O.J. Howard being drafted as a 14th tight end. I'm not gonna worry too much for any of these really about what round or position because once tight ends usually there's like the top 5 or 6 or 7. I can't remember where the tier breaks are, and then there's a gap of about 7 rounds, and then like from 13 to 15 that's when most tight ends go.
Yeah.
So I'm not really gonna worry about that. But he's being drafted as the 14th overall tight end for the Buccaneers. He finished as a 17th overall tight end last year. He got a lot of production from these weird kind of trick plays. We saw a couple of those where they got a little bit creative with the offense, and he ended up being wide open. I think he scored twice on the same play, actually, in 2 separate games. But it was the same exact play, and he was wide open both times. So that was good. But that kind of inflated his numbers a little bit. They gave Cameron Brate another extension. He's still the touchdown machine. Whenever Jameis is going to be out there, he's always looks towards Cameron Brate, especially in the red zone. And I just don't think that O.J. Howard's I really believe in O.J. for the future. I think he's an amazing athlete, and he's going to be a great tight end.
They definitely have the best tight end combo in the league. It's
by far.
Not even close.
Yeah, by far. And if if one team could produce 2 fantasy relevant tight ends, it's the Buccaneers for sure. I just don't think that his situation got any better. And then with the whole Jameis thing and the whole offense kind of trying to find itself, it doesn't bode well for a lot of production from 2 tight ends. So I would kind of pump the brakes on him. He's definitely he's a guy that I would be targeting in like a dynasty league. But as far as this year, I think he's still going to be playing the second role to Cameron Brate.
Yeah. My first guy, I'm going with the hero in this previous Super Bowl, Trey Burton.
He was the hero.
Yeah, he was. I mean, literally, I think it all falls back on this Super Bowl, really. But Trey Burton's my overvalued guy. He's going as a tight end 9 right now, in the 9th round, which that's worth mentioning because that's a little high.
Yeah, that one is high.
So, yeah, Trey Burton, it's just, I like his talent. I think he can be a good tight end in this league. Mm-hmm. I think people are overhyping him because of the Super Bowl. Like, we didn't even before the season ended, we were like, okay, Trey Burton's he's a good tight end. He's a good role player. He's just kind of another guy, honestly.
Yeah.
And then the Super Bowl happens. He throws a touchdown pass, and people lose their minds, and he becomes the most coveted, one of the most coveted offensive players on the market. And he goes to Chicago. He's in Chicago now, which, again, that's a terrible location. Just in terms of what that team has talent-wise. We don't know what Mitch Trubisky is. We don't know what the coaching changes are going to do to that offense. But Trey Burton definitely going to honestly, I think he'll have a worse fantasy season this year than he actually did last year. I think Trey Burton's going to really, really disappoint a lot of people. Again, I like the talent, but you got to think. I mean, the Bears. So many pieces on the Bears are just unknown. Adam Shaheen, they still like Adam Shaheen there, so he might get some tight end play alongside Trey Burton. It's just something I don't understand the hype right now. I think it's just hangover from the Super Bowl, and there are just so many other guys I think I'd rather have other than Trey Burton at the moment, especially in the 9th round. Like, come on, that's way, way too early.
Yeah, I mean, I somewhat agree, I guess. I don't know. He represents kind of a higher upside for that time. It would be too early for me to draft tight end, but I'm more of a late round tight end. I think you are the same too.
Yeah.
But I definitely think he'll do better than he did last year. I mean, he has to, right?
I'd take O.J. Howard over him. You were talking. He's your overvalued guy, but I'd take O.J. Howard over Trey Burton.
I mean, Trey Burton only had less than 300. He had 248 yards last year. I mean, I think he's going to get more than that as a starting tight end.
I mean, okay. I probably went a little overboard saying that he won't have as good of a fantasy season as he did last year.
Okay, so I was say you're just predicting on just a tank.
No, I mean, I expect out of a top, like, he will be outside the top 10 in terms of tight ends. I truly believe that. There's just not, I don't think he's going to score that many touchdowns. Yeah. There's just other guys there. Allen Robinson's there. He's going to be taking targets as well. So I just don't see all that great of production from Trey Burton in 2018.
No, it's definitely a risky pick, especially at number 9, like you said.
Yeah.
Staying on the risky pick side of things, my next overvalued guy is a injury-prone tight end in Jordan Reed. He's being drafted as the 10th tight end, about the same time as Trey Burton's being drafted for the Washington Redskins. I think in the past, I had it here. My iPad's being finicky. He's only played 18 games in the past 2 years. So he's been very, very unreliable for starts in fantasy. But the problem with drafting him is how good he is. I mean, when he plays, like if you go back to 2015, he had almost 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns. I mean, that's stupid.
You go back to last year's draft. A lot of the times he was being drafted in the top 5 tight ends just because we saw what he can do. Yeah. It's just the injuries scare the crap out of me.
I mean, he could be like a wide receiver almost. I mean, he can put up that kind of production, but it's just the injury. And I was reading through some reports today that he's already questionable for their OTAs with some sort of like toe injury. I don't even know. It's just always something with him, and that's the problem. So And if you're drafting in the 10th round, I mean, some of those players are kind of throwaway players. Like you're drafting bench players, kind of high upside guys, and so I could understand it there. But if you're drafting like your first tight end, I think there's a lot of other players that you have a
more reliable.
They're definitely more reliable, and even with not the same upside, but close to it.
And I'm definitely not a guy who likes to draft more than one tight end in a draft. So if you're thinking, hey, I'll get Jordan Reed here, and then I'll wait around and get another guy.
I don't like that because at that point, I mean, I would just stream just tight ends.
Yeah, roster spots that don't need to be filled.
Yeah, they need to be filled with running backs.
Yes, all
particularly.
Of them. All right, my last overvalued tight end, Austin Hooper. Austin Hooper,
the Hoop,
going as tight end 11 right now. I don't know where this hype is coming from.
I actually can't figure that out either.
It blows my mind. Austin Hooper has never been a fantasy relevant tight end. He had one good week last year, week 1, where he blew open like an 80-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, very impressive, by the way. But
oh yeah, I mean he can run decent, I guess.
He can run decent. Yes.
That's about all I can say.
But no,
about
I mean, Austin Hooper hasn't done anything fantasy relevant.
No.
The Falcons haven't had a fantasy relevant tight end since Tony Gonzalez left, so they don't really have a track record there. Matt Ryan doesn't.
Love Tony.
Yeah, Matt Ryan doesn't really use the tight ends that much. Mm-hmm. But last year, you take Austin Hooper. He was the tight end 18 on the year, and that was in PPR. He had 3 touchdowns last year. That was the same as Julio. Julio's numbers are going to get better, especially the touchdown production. We have Calvin Ridley there now. I expect him to have a monster rookie year. Mohamed Sanu, obviously, still there. I expect his touchdowns to go up as well. The running backs, again, one of the best 1-2 punches in the league. It's just, I don't see how Austin Hooper could even come close to a top 15 tight end season.
No, I don't see that at all.
I can't see it whatsoever. He's not getting another 80-yard touchdown. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, no, I like that pick a lot. I just didn't see a whole lot from him last year that would warrant me to say, oh man, I'm really gonna target him in the mid rounds or even the late rounds. I mean, there's just so many other tight ends that's worth a later pick than Austin Hooper. I don't get where the hype's coming from on that one.
No, it's bizarre.
Moving on to undervalued tight ends. So people that we think could be good late round finds, or people that you want to be targeting. And whenever you're going into your draft, you got to think about the players that you want in the later rounds, because that's where people really get.
That's where you make your money.
Yeah, because in the first 5 rounds, pretty much everyone knows where people are going. Like, you know what players are good. You know that they're going to be gone by that point. But it's the later ones that you take the flyers, and some of them hit, some of them are droppable. You just got to wait and see. So, undervalued, my first one is Ben Watson, former Ravens tight end, now on the New Orleans Saints. He is currently being drafted as a 21st tight end. I think it's like 1406, but that doesn't really matter. He showed a lot of potential. He hasn't played a whole lot. He didn't play. I think he only started 12 games last year, so his fantasy numbers didn't look that great last year. But when he was on the field, he looked good to me. I mean, he had a 77.2% catch rating, which is on par with all the top tight ends in the league. With tight ends, you really want you want a guy that can catch the ball, because they don't get that many targets anyway, unless you're one of the top ones. So I think if he stays healthy and he can start all 16 games, he's on a much better team.
Oh yeah,
Drew Brees kind of dipped in his passing production last year, but I feel like he's going to return to the mean next year.
And Ben Watson is a much more reliable tight end and red zone threat than Coby Fleener is.
Yeah, I was not sold on Coby Fleener at any point, and I don't think a lot of people were. But I think Ben Watson could definitely get some goal line work and get some red zone targets that'll turn into some tight ends, or touchdowns turn into some tight ends.
Yes.
So I expect him to do much better than last year, and even though he was fine last year too, I still think he's definitely undervalued at the 21st tight end.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. My first guy, Jack Doyle, Jack Doyle rules. But he's currently going as tight end 16 at the moment. Last year, he finished as the tight end 9. And
He's a very quiet tight end 9.
A quiet tight end 9, but you look at what Andrew Luck's throwing the football again. So how does Jack Doyle's ADP fall after the fact that Andrew Luck is going to be coming back? So we have Jack Doyle putting up tight end 9 number last year without Andrew Luck. That was with Brissett and Scott Tolzien throwing him the football. So now he's going to have a real quarterback again. And I fully expect Jack Doyle to honestly put up another top 10 season. I don't see why that's out of the question. I know the Colts got Eric Ebron.
I was just going to bring
I don't
him up.
care. I don't care whatsoever. I don't think Ebron's going to do anything with Jack Doyle, anything close to what Jack Doyle is going to have in terms of production. I don't think he's going to take much away from Jack Doyle at all. They need red zone guys, and T.Y. Hilton really isn't one of them. Dante Moncrief is gone. This is prime position for Jack Doyle to score a ton of touchdowns, and I fully expect it to happen. And as long as Luck is there, and I'm crossing my fingers that we finally will have Andrew Luck back this season.
Yeah, and I totally was coming into this episode thinking, okay, one of my overvalued, I already know it's going to be Eric Ebron. But then I looked at ADP, and Eric Ebron's below Jack Doyle, which is good. That's accurate.
That's astute.
Yes, and he's going as like the 19th tight end.
Ebron's still overvalued because I mean look at the guy, like he's in front of Njoku, he's in front of Ben Watson,
which I would definitely take.
Yeah, he's in front of Hayden Hurst, who I'd almost take over him.
I would be tempted.
A lot of guys. Yeah, a lot of guys I'd take over him.
Yeah. If Hayden Hurst wasn't on the Ravens, I mean, they just don't have they just don't do the tight end thing. So we'll see. But they spent the draft capital on him, so maybe.
Yeah, they like tight ends. They just
I would rather take the risk on Hayden Hurst than go with Eric Ebron.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right, who's your undervalued guy?
My next undervalued guy is Austin Seferian-Jenkins. Recently traded to he was traded.
Seferian-Jenkins?
Yeah.
It was a 1-year deal. Okay. He signed.
He signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars after playing a year with the Jets. He's bounced around a couple of different teams. But I really believe in his talent level. I think he should have had like 3 extra touchdowns last year, but it was the whole
yeah.
I don't even need to mention what happened there.
Yeah, they were taken from him.
They were taken. I mean his stat sheet's going to have an asterisk next to it for 2017. But he's going to a better situation, I believe, for tight ends. Blake Bortles, he had kind of his breakout year last year. I still believe in him going forward. I think they're going to have more. There's going to be opportunities for them to be in the red zone than there were in New York for the Jets. He's incredibly tall, and he has to be a red zone target. So I think his touchdown numbers are going to increase when they're going to rely on him a little bit more. Mercedes Lewis is gone, so we don't have to worry about
Everyone's gone.
Yeah.
Everyone's gone. Allen Robinson's gone. Allen Hurns is gone. Dante Moncrief is there, but Austin Seferian-Jenkins, man.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of target shares that have become available in Jacksonville. And I know that it's definitely a run-first team. They want to run the ball. They want to rely on their defense. But at some point, Blake Bortles does have to throw the ball and have to make some passing touchdowns. And I think that Austin Seferian-Jenkins has a great opportunity, way better opportunity than he had in New York, which I still believe he had a good year, but I think that he is definitely being undervalued as the 24th tight end this year.
My next guy, George Kittle. Old George. Going as tight end 17 right now, right behind Jack Doyle. I know it was only. I mean, this is going to be his sophomore year as a tight end. We didn't see much of him with Jimmy Garoppolo last year, but when we did, he was the tight end 13 in fantasy with Jimmy G as his quarterback. So tight end 13, That was when Jimmy G was just trying to get into the offense, learn the playbook. George Kittle was a rookie. He's trying to learn the playbook. They have a complete offseason, or almost complete offseason under their belt. I expect these two to be clicking on all cylinders. I think George Kittle is going to be a red zone monster for the 49ers, and I think he's going to be, honestly, just a reliable target for Jimmy Garoppolo. So tight end 17 is a little low for me. I think he could honestly be up there with maybe even top 10 numbers this year. I think I'd take him over Trey Burton. Again, I'd take him over Trey Burton. So I think George Kittle is a great, especially late round guy that you can target. I know there's a few of these late round guys that are. I mean, you might be able to stretch it until the 15th, 16th round. Honestly, you might be able to take some of these guys after your kickers. Like, people are going to sleep on some of these guys just because they're not on a good team. They're not that flashy. They're just guys that get the job done. But there are a lot of guys in those situations, and I think George Kittle is a perfect example of that.
Yeah. While I was just going through the list, I was looking around where George Kittle would go to. By the way, George Kittle or Jack Doyle, if you've got to pick one or the other in the late round.
That's very close. That's very close. I'd probably go Jack Doyle.
Okay.
Just because I think Andrew Luck and that situation is going to be a little bit better than the Niners situation.
Yeah, that one's close for me because I was thinking about that. But one question I have to ask: are people just done with Jared Cook? Because I didn't really notice, but I could have easily put him on an undervalued. I'm not into the Raiders this year. I'm not sold on Derek Carr. I'm not sold on John Gruden coaching. There's a lot of question marks, but Jared Cook was the 13th tight end last year.
Yeah.
And he is currently being drafted as the 23rd tight end. Why? What's the deal?
I kind of like Cook, and obviously, what he did last year was nice. I think he led the Raiders in receiving yards, which is bizarre because they have Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree.
Yeah. And I know the offense is going to look totally different, and he's not going to have as much opportunity. But even if he just slides up,
Gruden's never really been the biggest tight end guy. He's always been that that number one receiver guy, and then you got your string of running backs.
He's going to be really into Amari Cooper for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, I think obviously there's going to be red zone targets available because Crabtree is gone, but I don't know. I would take Cook over a few guys that are in front of him.
Yeah,
but
I mean, he's not like the flashy paper.
To say he's undervalued is a little bit of a stretch for me.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious. I was just really interested to see him like almost at the very bottom of the list.
Yeah. I mean, I could very well see him put up 5-6 touchdowns this year. I wouldn't be surprised.
It's just because he's a good tight end. It's just he just really fell off from last year. As I know, people actually really drafted him last year.
Yeah.
Going into it, and I just don't know why the hype has left the station.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, now my quick question. Basically, the first tight end off the board right now is Robert Gronkowski, according to Fantasy Football Calculator, going in the third round, fourth pick of the third round, and then we have, I think, basically, or where's your tier in terms of these tight ends? I think, honestly...
The tier break between 1 and 2?
Between the top, just the top, 5 guys. Top 7 guys, I should say.
Oh, okay.
So if
you only put a tier in between.
You make the tiers. You do it yourself.
Oh, okay.
But okay, basically we have Rob Gronkowski going. It's Gronk, Kelce, Ertz, Jimmy Graham, Greg Olsen, Evan Ingram, Kyle Rudolph, and then I think there's probably a tier break there.
Yeah, I would say so.
But I'm not putting all those guys together. Yeah. I'm not saying 1 through 7s together because I think Gronk, Kelce, Ertz, I think they're by themselves.
Yeah.
I think Jimmy and Greg are by themselves, and then Ingram and Rudolph are by themselves. So I think there's 3 tiers there.
It's so hard for me to keep Delaney Walker out of those.
It is, but...
He has, for the past 3 years, he hasn't finished worse than the tight end 6.
Okay, yeah, we'll go ahead and put Delaney in that tier, in those tiers, because after that, then you get to the Trey Burtons, Jordan Reeds, Austin Hoopers,
and those
Cameron
are
Briggs.
A little more risky. Those are definitely way more risky than the top 8.
Yeah, not as reliable of options, but...
Yeah.
Basically, I think I think the top 4, 5, 6, maybe 7, or maybe that entire tier that we mentioned, 1 through 8.
Yeah.
I think that entire tier, just in terms of where they're being drafted in general, just in drafts right now, I think they're all a bit undervalued.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Because, I mean, in the past, we've seen Rob Gronkowski go in the first round multiple occasions. And if you take a look back at last year, Jimmy Graham, who was the fourth tight end in fantasy, he would have been wide receiver, or he would have been the 32nd overall player in fantasy. Yeah. That's including, I think that's excluding quarterbacks. Yeah. It's just running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. So 32nd, and then he's going in the 5th round right now. Yeah. I mean, you do the math. It doesn't add up. So these tight ends, I think, are being undervalued at the moment. I would love to take Zach Ertz in the 4th round. Honestly, I think that'd be fantastic. But I just don't understand why now is when we're saying Rob Gronkowski is going to be lesser of himself, taking him in the 3rd round, because people are going to run with that.
Yeah, I mean, this is the lowest he's been, and maybe it's a combination of all the retirement talk and all of that junk, but he's stayed in the 3rd round for this whole offseason as far as ADP, so I don't really see it rising that much. But because we've seen him go in the 1st round, he's been the only tight end worthy of a 1st-round pick
in a long time. Yeah,
yeah, and last year he was going in the middle of the 2nd, and now he's going almost smack dab in the middle of the 3rd. So I think there's a lot of, and maybe it's just because people don't like drafting tight ends, or they don't really believe in them, because streaming tight ends is more of a, I don't know, it's just a more mainstream thing to do right now.
Yeah, a lot of people just go the streaming route,
and which is fine. You can find value in that, but you got to think about the value of having that every week starter. Like, you don't have to drop someone and pick someone up and think about matchups and all of that. You just know that they're going to be good. And yeah, we right before we recorded, you did a mock draft, and
yes.
you had the option. I don't know if you already had a tight end. You had the option. Kyle Rudolph was still available in the 10th round.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is just dumb.
yeah. I mean, you can wait on tight ends. Again, that's been the whole spiel thus far. Again, taking guys like Jack Doyle, George Kittle, Austin Seferian-Jenkins. But if you get to that point, I guarantee, because all those guys are outside the top 10, you're going to have people that will be like, yeah, Trey Burton's going to be my tight end all year. This is my guy. I'm not going to trade him out. So there's going to be options out there weekly to where you are able to stream tight ends, play the matchups, and just honestly perfect what you're doing that week. So, I mean, don't fret if you don't get a top-tier tight end.
No. And every league's going to be different. I mean, some leagues, everyone may draft tight ends higher.
Yeah, I will say a few other names I think that are... Oops, sorry about that. A few, late-round guys, maybe, or probably super late-round, sleepers. If you miss out on, all these guys we mentioned, if you miss out on Doyle, Kittle, Watson, Seferian-Jenkins, Jared Cook, you could use maybe, just... If you're thinking sleepers... Maybe Luke Wilson. Luke Wilson is now with the Lions, and Lions have vacated Eric Ebron from the scene, which is very, very good for them, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And then the Seahawks, they're going to have, Russell Wilson loves the tight end. They no longer have Jimmy Graham. They no longer have Luke Wilson. They will now, I think they have Ed Dixon now, and I think they have... who's their young guy? Nick Vannett, I believe.
It's Nick something. That sounds right.
Yeah, Nick Vannett. So one of those tight ends I think might be a decent late-round sleeper that obviously no one's going to be looking at. And again, when we're looking at these, we're looking at 10-team leagues. I know there are a lot of 12-team, 16-team leagues, even 18-team leagues out there. So you're going to be looking at these late-round guys, and you're going to be saying, hey, this is the guy who could really solidify my tight end position for the season.
Yep.
No.
And it also was really weird because who I was looking for on this list whenever we were trying to whenever I was going over who was overvalued and who was undervalued. I was looking for Jason Witten. It's so weird not seeing his name on a tight end list.
That's true. That is true.
Because he's played for forever. It just feels like it. Just always
Another sleeper. Rico Gathers, Cowboys tight end.
And I was looking for a Dallas tight end, and not a single one on here. That's crazy.
There's a lot of tight ends that are going to be like starting tight ends that aren't on this list.
Only a top 25, but you got to think. I mean, Dak and Jason had something special. I mean, Jason Witten, he's just reliable in general.
Yeah.
And so definitely not saying whoever jumps into his role is going to have that same level of production, but Dak is obviously comfortable throwing it to the tight ends, and they like those routes. And so I don't see any reason why he couldn't be a deep sleeper.
Yeah, definitely. All right, I guess we are going to close out the show. This has been a short episode. Again, tight ends. We don't want to ramble too much on tight ends, I guess.
Yeah.
Before we go, I'll just ask you right now. I haven't even talked to Brett about this. So, next week, I know because, again, with my job now, it's hard for us to find time to record. That's why we're recording this on the 4th of July. Happy 4th, everyone, by the way. Yeah, I hope you had a good 4th of July. You'll be listening to this on Thursday.
Hope you had plenty of burgers and hot dogs.
Definitely. And beer. You got to have the beer.
Yep.
But I'll ask you now because next week, I don't even know if I mentioned to the listeners like what I'm doing. I'm working with a minor league baseball team, the Johnson City Cardinals, right now, and minor league baseball is long hours. The games, obviously, we got to be there for every home game. I'm having the time of my life, but basically it gives me very little free time. So next week we have a 7-game homestand. So I'm going to be out of commission for the podcast for that entire week. So I'm going to ask you now if you want to go ahead and pre-record a mock draft show, because we haven't done a mock draft in a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And we'll do that, and then we'll drop it next week. You guys can listen to it then.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay, we're gonna jump off here. Again, thanks for listening. As always, make sure you follow us on Twitter at the423football. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and YouTube. Give us a like. Leave your comments and reviews. Thanks for listening. We are the 423 Football Podcast.
Peace.